'Tis the season to mock. Field Yates' second mock draft is here just in time for the holidays. The most intriguing picks and predictions are coming up. Plus, as always, we're responding to your questions, your takes, and your draft dreams live. First draft starts right now. Hi, everybody, and welcome to First Draft. We're here with you all year long, Thursday afternoons, and coming soon, we will be with you twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. That will be starting at the end of January. As always, live on the NFL on ESPN YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. They are the legends, Field Yates and Mel Kiper. Mel's big board, as always, is on ESPN.com, updated every Friday. Last week, we broke down Field's latest top 25 big board, also available on ESPN.com. But today, when I first got the idea that I would love to be a part of this podcast, this was the day that I had in mind. Today, Field Yates has Mock Draft 2.0 available. And let me start quickly, Mel, with you. As the godfather of this industry, as the man who, as I always say, invented the draft, how much do you enjoy breaking down and at times taking apart other people's mock drafts?
I take great joy in it because it's not me having to make those picks before we even know what underclassmen are going to be in this draft, before we know anything. Some guys you think are going to be in the draft are already in the portal, which is kind of crazy. Wouldn't be first rounders, but it's amazing what college football is going through right now in terms of all the changes. But to your point, love to be able to evaluate and basically do some criticism, some critiquing, and some questioning, I guess, of others' mocks. Now, the interesting thing this year is, will Field decide to make trades in his mocks? And I didn't look. I didn't peek ahead. I mean, I have an idea what I'm talking about. But did you predict any trades, Field?
No trades in this mock, and there's a very specific reason why, which is that as things stand right now, and one of the rules for this mock draft, Greeny and Mel, is that it is the order as of records through week 14. One win or one loss by a team in the top 5 could shake things up. But because the two teams that have the most glaring need at quarterback happen to have the first 2 picks in the draft, no trades were executed in this mock.
Okay. That's important information to have. And again, Field, before we start getting to your second mock draft, and I'll remind everyone, the first was released before the season began. So clearly we have basically an entire college football's season's worth of data to update your previous selections, not to mention the entire NFL season. So we have some sense of who's going to wind up where. What is it about this season that makes it unique? Every year is its own year. What is it about this year that makes this particular draft and this mock unique?
Got a lot of edge rushers this year, Greeny, after a weak class last year that included a couple of edge rushers in the first 17 picks, Leatu Latu, and also Dallas Turner, who, by the way, those two have probably been, number 2 and 3 in those first-round edge rushers. Jared Verse has become sort of the dominant rookie edge rusher that maybe should have gone first out of those. This year, you got a lot of edge rushers. Another contrast to last year, Greeny, is that age not as much of a detriment. You had some really good players last year and the year prior that because of the COVID year, you're debating the merits of taking a player in the first round who might be 23 or 24 years old, right? If there was a demerit of both Jared Verse and his teammate in college and now with the LA Rams, Brandon Fisk, it was that these guys, I think Fisk could be 25 soon, and he's still a rookie in the NFL. This year, much more normal in terms of the age for these players, which some teams do truly prioritize. And then for me, one of the most important criteria, Greeny, is that there's a lot of moves to be made before the draft begins. That will influence and fill some needs for particular teams. It will also create needs for other teams. I mention that because I feel it's important that my first 12 to 15 players on my overall big board go pretty darn close to the first 12 or 15 picks, because obviously there is a lot of work to be done between now and late April. But generally speaking, I don't want guys sliding because I just think there are way too many things that could happen to create or fill needs that I think we'll worry about those at a much later time. I'll talk about that with a specific player who happens to go in my first 13 selections, but my best players are going early in this mock draft.
Okay, so let's do this right. I really believe I should be the commissioner of the NFL. I love Roger Goodell, but I would love to be. So for today's exercise, I'm going to be playing the role of the commissioner of the National Football League. And so it is my pleasure to declare the Field Yates Mock Draft 2.0 officially open. And before we get to anything else, I say the magic words: the New York Football Giants are on the clock. So, Mel, you and I will be sitting there with Booger McFarland and Louis Riddick. In the moment before that pick is made, I'm going to ask you the question right now. If you were making the selection for the New York Giants, they clearly need a quarterback. There are two available, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, that are at the top of everybody's board. Mel, if it was you making the pick for the Giants, who would you take?
It would be Shedeur Sanders. I've said that all along. I haven't wavered on that. I think, or you think about changing opinions, you can between now and late April. You have the right to do that as more information comes in. I don't think between now and late April, anybody else other than Shedeur Sanders is going to be my QB1. Now, where would he have ranked all time? Where would he have ranked last year? He's not going to have a grade that's going to put him in that stratosphere of quarterbacks. He's not. He would have been fourth last year. But I think for what you have to deal with in a draft who's in that year. You can't, pass and say, I want to pick next year. This draft has two quarterbacks worthy of being considered in the top half of round one. Now, some think in the NFL that we are overdrafting these quarterbacks significantly by putting them up at 1 and 2. Fact of the matter is, if you need a quarterback, what else are you going to do? I mean, it happens every year. You can't just take another position and say, well, I'll get a quarterback. Where are you going to get that? Now, if you think Sam Darnold or you think Justin Fields or maybe Kirk Cousins comes available, there's different ways you can go. But in the draft itself, if you're sitting there at 1 and 2, those two quarterbacks probably will go. Now, the Giants could have had J.J. McCarthy last year. They passed on him. I don't know if the teams at the top, I can't speak for them. Maybe they don't love Shedeur Sanders enough to take him. Maybe they like Cam Ward a little better. Or maybe they don't like either one of them. But between now and then, somebody's going to talk themselves into one of these two quarterbacks. That's just the way it is. So I would go Shedeur Sanders, quarterback Colorado, if I'm the New York Football Giants, or anybody picking number one that needs a quarterback.
Okay, well, the pick is in. And so here we go. The pick is officially in. With the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, Field Yates Mock 2.0 projects the New York Giants to take Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado. Field, why did you make that pick?
Yeah, so Mel highlighted some of the dynamics in play here, Greeny, which, to remind people, Shedeur Sanders is player 14 on my big board. So this is 13 spots above where I have him in overall value, but he plays quarterback, and the Giants are out of options. There are very, very few veteran quarterbacks who I believe will move the needle this offseason. So let's talk about the strengths of Shedeur Sanders. I think he is clearly the most gifted pocket passer in this year's class. He throws with great touch. He throws with excellent accuracy. His ball placement, so within that accuracy construct, his ball placement is the best of any quarterback in this class. If he is trying to lead a receiver, he leads a receiver. If he is trying to throw the ball in the back hip of a receiver, so that receiver reduces the amount of contact he will take as he is running over the middle, the ball is on the back hip. Very good accuracy, very good ball placement, a sufficient to good athlete for the position. A great athlete by any stretch. He is not going to do a whole lot of damage with his legs, but this is a quarterback who has tremendous poise, the kind of player that absolutely has met the moment time and again this season. And while I could see a scenario, not a super likely one, but a scenario in which Cam Ward leapfrogs Shedeur Sanders for me at some point during the pre-draft process. Shedeur, for now, quarterback one, a deserving player to go off the board when you factor in the Giants' options at quarterback.
Okay, and I'm telling you right now, the pick is in. No time wasted whatsoever as we get to number 2. Mel, no time for us to analyze this. The pick is in with the second pick in the 2025 Field Yates Mock Draft 2.0. The Las Vegas Raiders select Cam Ward, quarterback, the U. Field, was there ever any question in your mind about these two picks?
Didn't think twice about either of these two picks, Granny. We can debate the order, but it's going to be one of these two players going first, the other going second. If these two teams are picking at the very top of the board, I think a lot of people have followed this Miami team very closely this season, so they probably know a lot about Cam Ward. This is a player in his third stop in his college career. He began his college career in Incarnate World, then spent 2 seasons at Washington State, was very productive player for the Cougars, and then transfers to Miami for his final season of college football. And Cam is a playmaker. He's got some razzle-dazzle to his game. Unlike Shedeur Sanders, he's a pretty good athlete. He has better arm strength than Shedeur Sanders. He has more, I would say, he's a more creative quarterback outside of structure than Shedeur Sanders. I thought, though, that his ball placement, his accuracy, not quite at the level of Shedeur Sanders. He did have some interceptions and sort of careless, unforced errors early in games that left Miami playing behind the 8 ball, but he made up for those by being a magician in the 4th quarter. So Cam Ward, player 17 overall on my big board, quarterback 2. A lot to like about both of these guys. They basically led, or they're the top 5 in the country of all major passing statistics. The Raiders are in desperate need of somebody to throw the football to Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers.
Mel, give me a quick projection. We're no longer in the mock. Now we're projecting to the actual. Is your expectation that this is what the top of the draft is actually going to look like? Do you expect Sanders and Ward to go 1 and 2?
Yeah, in real time, I do. And I think it speaks to what Fields said, 14 and 17 on his board as the 2 quarterbacks. At no other position would this be happening. You're not going to see the 14th and 17th player. And those 2 quarterbacks are 4 and 8 on my board. So I'm not at 1 or 2 with either one of them either. I like them a little more than Field does, because I guess I'm forcing them up a little bit because of positional value. And I do like Shedeur an awful lot. Cam is reckless. Cam's got to take better care of the football. In the NFL, you'll see more turnovers if he is loose with that ball and holds it out in a reckless way. But I think the arm talent and the fact that you have to get these guys, they don't grow on trees, is the reason why a guy at 14 and Shedeur and 17 on Fields' board and Cam Ward are going 1 and 2. Like, we wouldn't see this at cornerback, wide receiver, pass rusher. You'd never see that. But you're seeing it at quarterback, right or wrong. And a lot of times it's wrong because the board protects you. There's a reason why you rate players. GMs do this exercise with all their scouts, personnel people, coaches, for a reason. But you would never force a guy up that far unless it was a quarterback. And you can justify this by putting him up anywhere you want on your board. And you can say, hey, he was the best player in the draft. When other teams, and the ones you like to go to when you talk to people in the league, are teams that have no interest in quarterbacks.
Correct.
And they're the ones who will tell you really where those quarterbacks are. The teams that need a quarterback are going to push them up there because they're going to say, hey, he looks a little better to us than he does to them because we got to find that guy. And he's going to keep growing on us. And then we'll talk ourselves into it. Teams that have no interest in quarterbacks will grade them just by what they see and put it in perspective in terms of a historical standpoint. And I've talked to some of those people, Field and Greeny, and they don't think Shedeur or Cam Ward belong up there. So
they might think I'm too high on those guys at 14 and 17. They think these are like second-round picks.
Right, but when I argue with these people, I say, okay, but if you were the Giants or the Raiders, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah,
you got to have a quarterback. You're in the Raiders division with that AFC. You're in a division right now. You got Hurts. The Giants are going to figure it out. Okay, you got Dallas with Prescott. The NFC's got, it doesn't even matter, but you can't be sitting there when you're in a position where the Giants are, and they're going to have to make a move, right? And you got Washington with Jaden Daniels. So they got to when I say figure it out means, do you like one of those other options? You want to bring Sam Darnold back to New York? Okay. Do you want to go for roll the dice at Justin Fields? Can be the guy with all that talent, and we can make him into a consistent passing quarterback, augmented by his athleticism. Okay. So are those other options? I think it's going to be really fascinating to see. Do they think other options are better than the 2 options at the top of the board that you have to reach for dramatically, in some teams' minds, dramatically, to go up and take those guys or pick them at 1, 2 in the draft? So I think it's going to be really a lot of fun to see how this plays out. Because, like I say, there are other ways to go. And J.J. McCarthy's there as well. What happens if Sam Darnold leads Minnesota deep into the playoffs?
Sure. Yeah.
What do they do? So there's Justin Fields is going to be in a Russell Wilson. They're going to go with Russell, the way he's played. And there leaves Justin Fields dangling out there. So I just think for New York Football Giants and the Raiders, they will probably have to do what Fields said, Greeny, and take those 2 quarterbacks much higher than other teams who don't need quarterbacks think they should be selected.
Okay, the third pick is in. So the New England Patriots have a lot of needs. They have a good young quarterback who had a nice rookie season, actually looked more ready to play than most of us expected him to in Drake May. They need to bring him some help. And so the pick is in. And this is a conundrum that the commissioner has not actually faced in a very long time. And that is, I'm not sure what position to describe him as.
Unicorn.
With the third pick in the 2025 Field Yates Mock 2.0 draft, the New England Patriots select Travis Hunter, wide receiver and or cornerback from Colorado. A Field, it's a two-part question. One, why? Actually, forget the first part. We know why you're taking Hunter. He's everyone's favorite player in this draft. Are they taking him to play offense or are they taking him to play defense?
I think you'll figure that problem out later, Greeny. I think if the Patriots are making this pick, they have a preference to get him on the offensive side of the ball, because right now they got nobody that stresses the defense outside of Drake May on offense right now. They need someone for him to throw the football to. We have talked about it on this show. What do we think is the most likely way for Travis Hunter to be on the field for the highest number of snaps? I continue to believe that if he's going to play one full time and a little bit on the other side, you're more likely to play defense with some offensive snaps sprinkled in. But the Patriots may say, we need you so badly on offense that we'll focus with you exclusively on offense and get you in there on defense at a later date. I believe, and everybody that I've talked to that has scouted Travis Hunter, been through the program at Colorado, has suggested to me as much. He intends to play both sides of the ball to begin his NFL career. We'll see how long that lasts. We'll see whether that is team dependent. A lot of factors will go into that. But for the Patriots, there's too much talent on both positions to bypass a player of this stature, even with the team's significant need at left tackle.
What do you think, Mel?
I'm thrilled to have a problem like that, if you want to call it a problem. I'd be thrilled to have that problem. I just think in high school recruiting, what do they call them? Athlete. They just say athlete, right? If you don't know where they're going to play, call them anything you want. I think in terms of Travis Hunter, if he goes to the Patriots and you have Drake May, yes, you want Drake May to have that weapon, but then you have to beat Josh Allen, right? And you got Tua, and you got Mahomes, and you got Lamar, and you got Burrow, right? You got this AFC. So you got to figure out a way to stop those offenses with your defense, where you go back to Champ Bailey and Charles Woodson, those dual guys, right, that did everything. They were cornerbacks in the NFL. They're Hall of Famers at corner, as lockdown corners. It's hard to find those types of guys. So it's a tough call. And Field mentioned, as I said, sprinkle that cinnamon over the pumpkin pie, right? Sprinkle that cinnamon. Okay, where you sprinkle it, it's going to be very difficult, I think, to focus on two positions and maximize what you do at two positions. You're going to maximize one position and one position only, or you're going to wear this guy out. His stamina, his endurance is remarkable, but you can't in the National Football League, where everybody, I know they're getting paid in college, but these are professionals, to go out there and play corner and a lot of receiver, or wide receiver and a lot of corner. And to make that call is going to be a very difficult one. Now, what you may want to do is let it play out, because this is college to pro. Where does Travis Hunter excel once he's in the NFL? We don't know. Is he going to be a lockdown corner? Is he going to struggle a little bit? Is he going to be a great receiver? Will he struggle a little bit? We don't know where he's going to be at his best. They have to, I think, allow Travis Hunter to define what position he is going to be the elite guy at. Once he defines that, then you can say, well, he's really good. He's not elite, but he's pretty good at this other spot. So we'll work him in. Certainly big games, playoff games, Super Bowl.
Have situations. Yep.
Yeah. Pick your spots. Okay. Pick your spots. Why? Like those gadget plays. Yeah. Why did they waste it in a meaningless 7th-week game? Right. So he'd be that gadget guy. You can put in different roles on offense. Defense, obviously, is a corner. You can still use them. You got to have multiple DBs that can cover on the field in the NFL. So I think you have to let him, once he's in the league, define where he's going to be great. And New England needs both. So I would not say we're going to do this and then we're going to. I would let him go both ways when he's 22 years old, young kid. When he's young and he wants to do everything, let him show them, or show whoever drafts him, where he is going to be great or has the best chance to be great, and then work it that way.
Okay, we're going to get through the top 10 here, so we're keeping moving along. The pick is in.
Pick up the pace. I'll do it, I promise.
With the fourth pick In the Field Yates 2025 NFL Mock Draft 2.0, the Carolina Panthers select Abdul Carter, edge pass rusher, Penn State. Field. Why did they go that direction?
Well, they certainly need some more edge rushers. This past offseason, they made investments in DJ Guanum and also Jadeveon Clowney, Keelavon Chason. Chason now plays for the Raiders. We'll see whether Guanum or Clowney figures into the picture for Carolina beyond this season. This team has done an excellent job rebuilding the offensive line. And it sure looks like Bryce Young has a chance to be the quarterback of the future once again, but they need some difference makers in their front seven in a major way, and in a class that has very, very good edge rushers. I do believe that Carter stands atop of the heap. I believe he is the second best player in this entire draft. 10 sacks this season. A guy who, this is his first year playing a full-time edge role, Brady. He was a stand-up inside linebacker for much of last season because Penn State had 2 edge rushers that were drafted in the first 3 rounds. He has a rare first step off the football. He explodes off of the edge. Last week against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, even in a game in which he did not record a sack, he was all over the place, giving those 2 capable Oregon offensive tackles all sorts of fits. He's a difference-making player early on in the draft.
Okay, so we are through 4 picks, and I think so far it has gone about the way we expected. Now, Mel, as we know, we always on our podcast here take questions from those people who are nice enough to hang out with us on Twitter. And Bill Smith with the Cleveland Browns on the clock, and they're taking some time here to get their envelope in. Bill Smith tweets, do you think the Browns will prioritize taking a quarterback in round 1, target a tackle, or just go best available? So, Mel, I'll ask you, with the Browns, you see who's still remaining on the board. If you were picking for the Browns now, what direction would you be going?
You know, it's not a year where any of those offensive linemen, to me, have jumped out of the, Kelvin Banks with the injury was struggling a little bit at times. You saw some hiccups there. Will Campbell, what position is going to be, where is he going to be able to maximize his ability coming out of LSU? So I think this is a kind of year where if I'm in a position like this, I'm listening. I'm going to listen to offers, because maybe somebody, who knows how the draft's going to unfold by the time we get, if somebody slips through and somebody wants to move up, I'm going to value 2nd, 3rd, 4th round picks in this draft very heavily. That's going to be where I'm going to try to do my damage. From that 2nd through 7th round, there's going to be a lot of good football players taken. First round's going to be very tricky. So I would be looking at that point in time to field offers to move down if I'm in that position of the Cleveland Browns.
That was a good answer. Look at that. I mean, I was going to say, come on, Mel. Like, trade down. Sure, we all want to trade down. We need an answer, though. You're picking at pick 5. What are you doing here?
I'm looking for you to rip Field to shreds here. So I'm looking for you. I know you don't know who he took, so I'm hoping you'll tell him he should be taking someone else. If you're the Browns and you have no offers at all, who would you take in this spot?
If I had no offers and I'm sitting there right now, I'm going to have to go to the board and say, who is the best player available at that particular point? And Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, would be. Medical is going to be tricky with him. Not tricky. It's going to, obviously, he hasn't played. It's an injury. He's going to be back playing. I would say right now, if you want to force it and take an offensive tackle, you could. The best player on the board for me would be Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. That's the
okay. Well, the pick is in
on the board.
Here we go. Mel has weighed in. Booger and Lewis are nodding their heads as though they agree. And here it is with the 5th pick in the Field Yates mock draft. The Cleveland Browns select Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle, Texas. Field. Why do they make that pick?
Browns need offensive line help in a major, major way. Jedrick Wills obviously was an experiment that did not work out. He's on injured reserve right now. And frankly, wasn't very good this season prior to getting hurt, Greeny. And I don't believe the quarterback merits consideration right now. Mel, I know, would agree with that. So I'm Xing that out as a need for the Browns at this moment. They've gotten improved wide receiver play from Jerry Jeudy of late. That has become less of a need. I think protection for whoever is quarterback next year, though, is absolutely key. And I know we can debate about Kelvin Banks versus Will Campbell, if he was healthy, versus Josh Simmons from Ohio State, but he's not, so probably not a part of this conversation. I think, Mel and Greeny, one of the things that I'm trying to do more this year than I did last year is when you find a player where the tape is pretty darn good, character's pretty darn good, The medical is not overly concerning. You just say, I'm not going to overthink it with this guy. Kelvin Banks, perfect? No. Pretty darn good at a premium position? Heck yes. Give me Kelvin Banks Jr. here.
Let me just say this. That's why I say 2nd through 7. Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, injured. Where's the medical going to be for him? Where does he fall? I would prefer him in the 2nd round, and I don't care when he's going to come back from this injury. When he comes back, I got a great left tackle. And I think that's what I would be thinking with him at that particular point. I look at a guy like Ariante Ursery out of Minnesota as a guy would figure in round 2 of the draft. Anthony Belton, NC State's another one. Milam from West Virginia is another one. I think you can attack that position in the 2nd or 3rd round area, particularly the 2nd round, and be in pretty good shape. So I think there's going to be ways, creative ways, and just looking at the board and where the best players are going to come off this board. I think that 2nd and 3rd round is going to be, at day 2 is going to be really impressive. I think even more so than round 1. That's where a lot of really good players are going to go. Ursery, Minnesota, but Simmons, the only reason we'll be talking about him on day 2 is because of the injury. If it wasn't for the injury, he would be right there, maybe even ahead of Kelvin Banks Jr. as the top left tackle in this draft.
Right. Hey, Mel, I'm not so he might still go in the 1st round. Maybe he makes it into the 1st round of my mock draft. We'll have to find out.
Right now, they're killing you on ESPN, Field. They're killing you right now for this. They believe you've overdrafted Banks. Oh, they're right now. Mel is killing you. Lewis is killing you.
Bring it on. Come on. Come on. Bring it on. I want all the heat.
We get to number 6. The New York Jets are on the clock. Is there an owner available in this draft that they could take? I think that really is their biggest need. So I don't know if the Jets can take an owner. If that's not an option, then let's see what they wind up doing. Oh, the pick is in. Here we go. With the 6th pick in the Field Yates mock 2.0, the New York Jets select Mason Graham, defensive tackle, Michigan. Field, what's the thinking there?
This is a no-weakness player, Greeny. I don't know what the area of limitation is for Mason Graham, who arrived at Michigan as a true freshman, an 18-year-old from Arizona, comes to Michigan, and from the moment he steps onto the field, dominates. Now, I understand that the difference between an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old, a freshman to a senior, is not the same as he'll see at the NFL level. A 22-year-old rookie facing off against a 29-year-old savvy veteran offensive lineman. But at 18 years old, he was pushing people around like he was the biggest, baddest dude in all of college football. He is a disruptor in the middle of a defense. The sack production, I don't care about what the numbers are for sacks, because so much more tells the story about what an interior pass rusher can do. And if you don't believe me, go ask Ohio State, because Mason Graham nearly got them knocked out of the playoff. Or I guess they still made the playoff, but you get my point. The committee had to think about it after Ohio State entered that rivalry game as the number 2 team in the college football playoff rankings. Never takes a playoff. His motor runs hot, incredibly powerful, a fantastic athlete as well, at a position that we have seen in recent years has become a premium spot. Chris Jones making $30+ million per year. Quinn Williams, the new tag team partner of Mason Graham. By the way, good luck plucking those two together. He's making some $25 million+ per year. Defensive tackles that can rush the passer are getting paid like never before in the NFL, and the Jets would have the best interior duo in all of football, and it wouldn't be close.
Yeah, let me just say this. If we would have been speaking in August, I would have thought, no question, Mykel Williams, Georgia, James Pierce Jr., Tennessee, an edge rusher would be off the board right about now or even earlier. But it just hasn't worked out. Mykel Williams had the ankle injury. He's been flashing of late, but it's not the consistent domination you thought you would get. James Pierce Jr., Tennessee, same type of thing. We also thought, and I'll ask Field this, a quarterback you've been raving about all along. You said, I'm too down on him. I'm too low on him. I should have him higher. Is Jalen Milroe from Alabama. You said you're going to stay with Jalen Milroe. You're on Jalen Milroe. You're not getting off Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe's the guy. The Jets are a possibility. No. Did you think about Jalen Milroe? I don't have him in my top 25. Do you have him? Number one, do you have him right now in your top 25? And do you have him in this mock 1.0 or 2.0?
Player 24. Player 24. Here's where I think Jalen Milroe, he does not fit in the mock, though. Here's the reason why. We have not gotten a clear enough picture of all the dominoes of the quarterback market this offseason. Once the dust settles with the free agency, we're going to have a better idea of who exactly is absolutely unequivocally in the quarterback market. In a world in which Sam Darnold goes to, and I'm just making this up, people, Tennessee. All right, well, the Titans, off the quarterback market list, right? there are going to be some other dominoes that will fall. If the Saints move on from Derek Carr, they're a team that could be in that quarterback market. So I do believe there's still a chance that Jalen Milroe goes inside round 1. He just needs to figure out which teams actually are going to be in the quarterback market, because right now we can point to obviously 2. By the way, if the Jets move off from Aaron Rodgers, he's going to land somewhere if he continues to play football. That team will be X'd out from the quarterback market. So still believe that Jalen Milroe will find his way at some point into round 1, just not right now.
Okay, and so the mock draft moves along here. The aforementioned Tennessee Titans are on the board. Not sure if Will Levis is still their quarterback, as Field just said, or have they gone out and made some more other sort of move? One way or another, their pick is in, and this is an interesting one. With the number 7 pick in the Field Yates mock draft, the Tennessee Titans select the man they call T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver, Arizona. Field. This just shook up the room. All the fans in Greenberg going, ooh, didn't see that one coming. Booger McFarland just fell backwards out of his seat. Field, explain that one.
Hey, pick yourself back up, Logan. Get ready for the truth, because that is what Tetairoa McMillan is. This is a 6'5", 210-pound wide receiver who moves unlike a 6'5", 210-pound wide receiver. He is silky smooth. He is obviously an excellent red zone weapon because he's like a basketball player down there in the red zone. Just throw the ball up there. Let him alley-oop it home for the slam dunk. Very, very good route runner. Grady, you talk about catch radiuses in football. Mine right now is not very good because my shoulder is still on 100%. Tetairoa McMillan has the best catch radius in all of this draft class. He snatches football seemingly out of midair. Had a great season for what was a bad Arizona, this team that really fell off in the first year after Jed Fish's departure. Tetairoa McMillan is excellent. I think there is one thing that will really cement where he falls into the draft. If he runs a 40, if it's a 4.4 something, not worried about him falling out of the top 10. If he drops below 4.4, which I don't think it will, but if it does, then all of a sudden we're having a conversation if it is a 4.5 something, but really clean prospect otherwise, high character kid, young player as well, has been really dominant since basically the moment he became a college football player. And for the Titans, you need other pieces other than Calvin Ridley in this passing game.
Mel, is he going top 10?
He could, and certainly Tennessee's got to fix that right tackle spot. And Field had mentioned Sam Darnold for Will Levis because you want to have an option. Will Levis, to me, and I've been higher on him than others, but I think when you look at what Will did this past Sunday, you'll say, well, you got to get mad, or he couldn't put points on the board against the Jacksonville Jaguars, couldn't beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. What cost him that game was Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan cost Tennessee that football game, okay? Not Will Levis. Brian Callahan's got to kick that field goal. You go up 6-0. Then you go up. Then you got your points. The 9 becomes 12. You win that game 12-10. That should have been a 12-10 Tennessee win. Nobody would be talking about anything that was missed. You should have hit this guy. You kick the field goal. You take the points, okay? And then you end up with another field goal, then another one. Last time I checked, the Steelers have won games with 18 points a few times, haven't they? Mike Tomlin understands how to win football games. When you need 3, you take the 3. You got to know how the game's going to go. Bill Cowher pointed that out. Hall of Fame coach, phenomenal. Bill Cowher said, hey, what are you doing? So when Brian Callahan at the end of that game says, we didn't score enough points, well, you should have scored enough damn points. You had 6 given to you. That's a touchdown last time I checked, Brian. Had 6 points you left on the field because you didn't take the 3, which meant you couldn't take the 3 because you were down 10-6 to win the game 12-10. You had to go for touchdowns, okay? And he got an AC joint sprain going in. He had that. He had a hit by Josh Hines Allen when he drilled Levis on the final play of the first half, okay? He got shot up at halftime, right? Shot up at halftime. Comes out in the second half. He didn't look like he could even come out and play. Shot. He's out there playing in the second half, gutting it out. So kick the daggone field goal. You win the game. Tennessee's not even picking here. They win the game. They beat Jacksonville 12-10. Didn't happen. They lost 10-6. They got to figure it out. Is he Brian Callahan's guy? I don't know. He had Joe Burrow. Is Will Levis Joe Burrow? No, he's not. He's never going to be Joe Burrow. Yeah. So I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. I don't know. Will they get another option like Darnold? They need another receiver. He put a pass into Westbrook Akine, and it wasn't caught. Could have been a touchdown. You know, Ridley hasn't been what they thought he would be. When out of bounds on a ball, he could have maybe geared down. Does Will have to be a little tick faster getting that ball out? Yes, he does. How many starts has he had? Almost the equivalent to 1 year in the NFL. So we'll see. Yeah. He'll get competition. I just don't know if he's Callahan's guy. But offensive right tackle has got to be a priority. And that's, to me, has got to be a position they address early in this draft at some point.
To me, as an observer here, which is generally speaking what I am, the teams where we have them, to Fields' point, that order is going to change. All that feels somewhat fungible. To me, the most interesting thing that we've learned so far is that we believe McMillan is going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. I don't know that I was expecting that coming into this exercise. So to me, I'm going to bookmark that as so far the first thing that has really jumped off the page at me. That said, the Jaguars pick is in. They're coming fast and furious today, guys. The Jacksonville Jaguars, with the 8th pick in the 2025 NFL Mock Draft 2.0, select Will Johnson, cornerback, Michigan. Field, take it away.
The Jaguars have a lot of needs, but basically on defense, it applies to every level of that defense. Somebody to play opposite Tyson Campbell, who they extended earlier this season, and that's Will Johnson. I will stand my ground on this player, Greeny, until I'm given a much better reason not to. He has missed a lot of this past year because of a toe injury, but he did play early on in the season, and he looked very much like the player that I thought coming into the year was on the short list for very best in all of college football. He's got 9 career interceptions for Michigan. 3 of them were returned for a touchdown. That's a Michigan record for pick sixes. He's got excellent size. I think his twitch and his acceleration and his agility is all better than I think others do. This is something that has surprised me. And we are making these mock drafts largely based off what we see, but we are also consulting with people around the NFL that are scouting these players. There was more disagreement on Will Johnson than I anticipated. He falls in this category of darn good player, darn good tape. I think the medical is not a major long-term concern. Darn good character as well. Make it easy. There are some that feel as though he needs to run somewhere in the mid to high 4.4s to be worthy of a top 10 pick. I think he's going to get there, and I think he's worthy of another way. I'm just offering up what other people have suggested to me. I'm in on Will Johnson, though. I think this guy has the goods to be a lockdown man cornerback, and we know he is going to be a dominant zone cornerback as well.
Mel, you're worried about it.
Yeah, well, no, I think the fact he hadn't played, I think that was where it was. Remember Jackson Smith and Jigba, wide receiver, Ohio State, had those times. Everybody was criticizing him. I was a defender of him. He was hurt. He didn't play. He was hurt. And look what he's doing with Seattle. Will Johnson's a good corner. In this draft, what you're finding, and I throw a word out, and Greeny doesn't like to hear it because we're all excited about this is underwhelming first round. It's an underwhelming first round, whether you want to hear it or not. It's underwhelming is the word I've used everywhere I've talked over the last few weeks about this first round of this draft. These players that we're talking about haven't gone out and wowed you over. A lot of them have been injured. Some haven't played to the level of their talent. And you got to take somebody. You mentioned T-Mac at Arizona, Greeny. Somebody's got to go. I mean, Luther Burden hasn't wowed anybody over at Missouri. Another wide receiver. That's why that second, third round, I think you're going to get players who are as good or better. They're going to present better value, guaranteed better value in those rounds. I'm looking down at, keep giving the names, Field. Or is anybody that's hearing these names going to be, whoa, look, we got a guy who's going to be coming in and be a difference maker. If they haven't dominated in college, what's going to happen in the NFL? These guys haven't gone out and lit it up and just dominated on defense, lit it up on offense. A lot of these guys haven't, for various reasons, come through with the type of year we anticipated. Will Johnson being one of those because of the injury. Phil mentioned what the 40 is going to be. So there's going to be a lot of that in that top 10 to 15. A lot of guys who are a little iffy with some teams, but you got to take a guy. You can't, as I said, Phil just said it when I tried to get him to trade the 5th pick. Well, you got to have a dance partner.
You got to have a dance partner. That's right. That's right.
Partners you're going to have. I can't project that, but there will be something going on because in a draft like this, they're going to love 2 or 3 or 4 guys, and they're going to say, we got to get them because we don't like these other guys. So there may be a chance for that. But I think the fact of the matter is, and it's got to be stated, we're going through here, and who are you really super excited about, Field? I mean, it's just, like I said, the word I'm using is underwhelming.
But I'm going to say, so I will, and I used it just a little while ago, just to be very clear. Will Johnson, Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, Tetairoa McMillan. I get it. You could find a little pimple on these guys. That's how this stuff works, right? You could talk yourself into or out of players. But with good tape, assuming there's no major long-term medical concern, right? We're not talking about Savon Ravel or Josh Simmons or Ben Morrison, who are coming off of full season-ending injuries that we knew at the time of the injury was going to cost them the rest of the season. Good players, good people, good medical bill of health. I'm not going to overthink it too much. Some might not see these guys quite as strongly. So with Will Johnson, 8 might be too low in some people's eyes, too high in others, but I'm a big fan of the player.
Let's bookmark this conversation for next week, because Mel, I think you misunderstand what I mean when I say I don't like every draft can only be graded on its own curve. The value of a first-round pick in this year's draft may not equate to the value of a first-round pick in last year's draft, but that doesn't really make any difference. The teams are choosing from this particular pool, and you got to get the best player. So the value of a first-round pick is greater than the value of a third-round pick, even if that isn't. It wouldn't be the case in different years. Having just said that, let me make a controversial statement. You guys are the experts. I'm just a fan. But Mel, if I said to you right now that if Will Johnson was fully healthy and Travis Hunter was only a cornerback, that Will Johnson would be a better prospect, would you make fun of me, or would you say, Greeny, I think you're right?
I'd love Travis Hunter. Yeah, it's hard for me to put
purely as a corner.
Yeah, I love him as a corner. I love him as a receiver. I love him everything he does. I just love the kid. I love the fact. I think when you watch him, he wants to be out there for everything, and he doesn't want to miss anything. And he's aware of everything that's going on around him. He's got an instinct for this game and a passion and a love for this game, unlike anybody I've seen. So, I think when you look at where he fits, and I said, I'm excited about Travis Hunter. I mean, I think I've said that enough over the podcast we've done and over the course of the years that we watch Travis Hunter. He's number one on my board. He has been. People were saying back in August, September, why is he one? I don't know. I don't know who you could put at one. I don't know anybody who could put another player at one over Travis Hunter in this draft. Field, correct me if I'm wrong on that. Have you talked to anybody in the league that has anybody ahead of Travis Hunter on their board? I don't know. I haven't. But Travis Hunter is the guy to get excited about. Abdul Carter, I agree. Penn State outside linebacker, edge guy, love him. Okay. Get excited about Abdul Carter. No question about that. I like Shedeur Sanders a lot more than others do. I'm excited about Shedeur. Okay. So I think when you look at those guys, Mason Graham, I get it. He's going to give you everything he has. He's a safe pick. Okay. Yep. But then the guys that I think are in that area where we didn't get enough, we didn't see enough, is Mykel Williams from Georgia. James Pierce. Right? Love Ashton Jenney, but he's a running back, and on running back positional situation, I'm going to grade him right now on my board. He's number 6. I don't know where he is on yours. So there are guys. Now Malachi Starks had a good, not an elite year, not a great year. Okay?
Good year, not great. Yeah,
exactly. So that's what I'm saying, Green. I think T-Mac, same thing. Arizona, Burden, not the year expected. So that's what I'm saying. But are these guys capable? Yes. It was a little frustrating to me that we didn't see them all at their best, because of some team things that were going on, slipping back a little bit. Look at Arizona's year last year compared to this year. Look at the injuries. We've had more injuries of top 25 guys in my 47 years of doing this. I've never had all these guys on the big board out for the year, not even coming back. And the one that came back was Mykel Williams from the ankle injury. Okay. Ratledge on the offensive line had an injury as well. So ton of injured players, and a number of them have been injured and out for the entire season.
I'll just say again, I totally defer to you guys as experts. If this draft had happened last year and Will Johnson was fully healthy, wouldn't he have been a top 3 pick in this? I mean, people were talking about him
in this year's draft.
Corner.
Greedy. I will say this. In my opinion, the answer is yes. I have just been surprised by the number of people from the NFL. It's far from consensus, because I got some people that got some massive grades, look a lot like what you're talking about and what I have on Will Johnson. But there are some people within the NFL whose opinion I respect and trust that feel like he doesn't run a dominant 40 time. We might be talking about somewhere closer to 16 to 25 than we are 1 to 6. Just put it out there right now.
You're always going to have. Remember Joe Hayden, the cornerback out of Florida, and all that.
Or 7th overall pick in 2010.
I think one thing about these players, like you say with Will, if Will Johnson finishes and plays through the year in that defense, wouldn't it have been great to see him against Ohio State and see him with Jeremiah Smith, against Emeka Egbuka, and some of those games? So when you don't see somebody, where Jackson Smith and Jigba dropped to, he dropped down to Seattle. Well, I thought going into the year, he'd be a top 10, top 12 guy guaranteed. He dropped a little bit, didn't play that final year after the early portion of the season. Shut it down. Same thing with Will Johnson. Mykel Williams is going to be really interesting because of that ankle injury. He's flashing, but he hasn't had the dominant. So there's going to be, I'll call them all, and Field started off with Will Johnson. I'll say there's a lot of wild cards in the first round this year that there's going to be a lot of mixed opinion on as to where they could end up going come late April.
Okay, so I'm just going to make my official prediction. This is why I play the commissioner in this exercise and not one of the teams.
A lot of these.
Will Johnson's going to be a steal. When Will Johnson hasn't been healthy all year long. I remember when we stared this season, you guys were talking about Will Johnson as a top 2 player in this class. Yeah. He's been hurt all year long. I think if he falls down this far, I think he's going to be a steal. Okay. Let's round out the top 10.
Sure.
The picks came in so fast that we're just running out of commercial right now. Mel, we're racing out of commercial, and the commissioner is actually announcing 2 picks at once.
Wow.
So with the number 9 pick in the 2025 Field Yates mock draft, the Chicago Bears select Will Campbell, offensive tackle, LSU. And with the number 10 pick in the mock draft, the New Orleans Saints select Mykel Williams, aforementioned edge rusher from Georgia. Field, take us through those 2 players because they are names we've been hearing about since the very beginning of the season and beyond.
Yeah, nobody needs me to describe why the Bears are taking an offensive tackle. Caleb Williams has been sacked more than any other quarterback in the NFL this season. Is it perfect? No. Are there some people that think that he might be a guard like Mel referenced earlier on in the season? Early on in the show? Yes, there are. He's 20 years old. He's played basically every snap for LSU. Since the minute he walked on the campus, he's a true freshman. His responsibility in those 3 years, protecting the blind side of Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier, the number 2 overall pick in the draft last year, and a guy who could go in the first round of the draft next year. The guy's allowed 4 sacks in 3 years. Outstanding athlete, springy feet. I'm a big fan of the player. And then with Mykel Williams, we've talked about him a ton as well. Has put it together. He needs to play Texas every week because he got 4 sacks in 2 games against Texas this season. A dominant physical specimen. The Saints have always had an affinity for players who have these unique traits. Whether it was a Peyton Turner late in round 1, Marcus Davenport, or they traded up involving the other first-round pick to grab from UTSA a handful of years ago with Cam Jordan still playing at a high level, but in his mid-30s, and some pieces like Chase Young set to be free agents. I think that New Orleans needs to address the edge.
Okay. And so I will mention those are the top 10 picks of Fields mock draft. You can see the entire first round, yes, it is the entire first round on ESPN.com for the full mock. And we will dive into the rest of it in next week's podcast. But this is the moment I've really been waiting for. Mel, as you look at the top 10 picks, which is the one you have the biggest problem with? Where is your single biggest criticism of your buddy Fielding Yates?
Well, like I said, I think not hearing some names that Field was throwing out there earlier, and I brought one up in Milroe, was a little, and I'm not going to say it was a surprise. I'm surprised that Field didn't have Milroe in the first round. Top 10, though, to answer your question, I think when you look at where he has certain guys going, Field's higher on Kelvin Banks Jr. than I am, but I get that. There was no glaring, wow, I can't believe he did.
That was a great mock.
Yeah, there was none of that, Field. So young Fielding did a really good job for what you have to work with here. I will say this. The LTPers, there's a lot of those. The look the part guy. They look the part. And Mykel Williams looks the part of a great edge rusher. And had he had the kind of season without the ankle injury, Green talked about Will Johnson being hurt, had Mykel Williams been healthy from start to finish, we would have been talking about him way up there. But now, because of the injury, and you mentioned Texas didn't have Kelvin Banks Jr., right, out injured, then what happens now? Where does he factor in? He's one of those wild cards, Mykel Williams. Where did you have him coming off the board, Field? Remind me, Greeny. Where
number 10 for Mykel Williams, yeah.
Number 10. And on my board right now, he's at 7. So he's the guy. We talked about the potential. I think we did it on ESPN.com. Who could be the number 1 pick overall? He got a lot of votes back in August to be the number 1 pick in this draft, because you knew he had the ability, he flashed it, and you knew he looked the part. But the ankle injury, and as I said it, we've not mentioned all the guys. This has been unprecedented in terms of injuries affecting these guys, like a Will Johnson, cornerback, Michigan, that makes it very difficult. But it does define Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham. And one of the surprises to me, it wasn't a shocker, and I know you couldn't find that spot because the ideal team is America's team, okay, that's struggling right now, is Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, running back, Boise State, is number 6 on my big board. Here we are at number 11, pick 11 coming up, has not yet been selected by young Fielding Yates, right?
You got an issue? Where should he have gone, though? It seems like we're actually in pretty good lockstep here because I believe this. And when I was talking earlier in the show about how I felt it was important that my top 12 to 15 players are taken in the first 15 to 20 picks because you're going to have guys like the quarterbacks moving up. Ashton Jeanty was the guy I had in mind. Is there a perfect landing spot for him early? Some would argue now that the Cowboys have gotten good production in Rico Dowdle and they have too many needs elsewhere. They should not draft the running back in the first round. The bottom line is this. Ashton Jeanty is going to the first round somewhere, and I think it's somewhere in the first 15 picks. It might be to a team that right now, it would feel like a luxury taking running back, but that's how good of a player this is. That's how special Ashton Jeanty is.
Well, you will find out on next week's podcast. Again, Field's entire mock for round one is available on ESPN.com, but we will dive deeply into the rest of the first round picks in next week's podcast. That's all the time we have for First Draft this week. Do not forget to like and subscribe to our podcast and tune in every Thursday afternoon during the season for full NFL draft analysis, and keep those questions coming using the hashtag First Draft for a chance to hear your questions answered on this program. For young Fielding Yates, and I do like that, and the man who invented the draft, Mel Kiper Jr., I am Greeny. Thank you for being with us. We will see you next week.
All right.